Hey YouTube, just continuing on from the last video. You can see I've cut a little bit further out here using that same method I was talking about before, and you can also see on this side the waviness to it that I was trying to talk about in the other video with the longer cutter, how it was chattering far more than what the shorter cutter does. And I don't know whether you can really see this very well, but this surface here is extremely smooth, as is this one. This one not so much, but these two where I was using the full flute to cut across, those guys are really smooth. So the next step from here is I'll be popping it into the vise to do something similar to that. So I've just got to put together a little bit of a plan for how I'm going to cut these corners off without chipping things or breaking things off. So I'm going to have to probably start wide and just come and just touch these corners around like that, just move in a tiny bit, same again, and just keep working in till I've given myself a little bit of a moon shape on both ends. Now as far as the fit's concerned, this was the previous one, and you can see if I get down a little bit lower, probably got about a millimetre of slop in that, or probably close to a millimetre. Where this guy is a nice fit in there, it's probably just got a tenth or maybe 2/10 of a millimetre there, if that. So that should be a nice fit. So I'm much happier with the tolerances of it, and we'll go outside now and start working on this part. Okay, had more problems with the controller, so while I was at it I've changed back to one of the larger cutters. This one's a fresh cutter, so hopefully it should do a nice clean job. And I'm still having a bit of trouble lining up this way. That presents a problem. If I just feed the Z down. And then zero it off. Yep, that was a risk of doing that. Okay, so what did I do wrong? Well, for starters, I had a shorter cutter in to start with, so I chopped down to here 25 millimeters and thought, well, the first thing I'll do is I'll go around, I'll take 25 mil off first, so that when I come down in with a longer cutter later on, I've got less to take off. That was probably my first mistake, simply because of the fact that trying to line everything back up again into the perfect spot for it to work is pretty hard at the best of times when I didn't leave myself enough material on the ends here to account for any extra being taken off. So that's probably the first mistake. I probably should have started with a longer cutter because I've only had the corners to cut off. So that's probably my first mistake. The second mistake I made there was that I got lazy. Instead of rewriting the G code and making it a 40 mil cut, I left it at 25 mil and I put the cutter down 15 millimeters, re-zeroed it off to here, so this become the 0 point, and then it would have cut the 25mm, which would have taken it to here. Except for the problem there is that, and I brought the cutter back up to the top here, the problem here is that it goes to the feed plane, and the feed plane is 5mm above zero. So basically it came down to somewhere about 10mm below, and then tried to drive across to the start point, which is why it hooked into this, because the start point where the cycle starts is over about here. So it went down the 10mm because I probably had it, well, it went down to 10 below this point, but it was still 5 above the 0 point. So came down to there, and as you saw, went straight across to here to the start point. What I should have done is probably to set the feed plane higher, or maybe put a retract in there or something like that. But of course that means going back to the G code, refixing all that back up again, putting it back onto a USB stick to then transfer it over to the machine that I was working on. And I was just pure being lazy, and this is a result. But it's not a total waste. I need to make 2 spaces for down the bottom of the bracket here. This was the one that I was obviously making, that was designed to go in there. But I also need to make 2 spaces of the same size to go down here. So what I can do with this guy is just lob this top part off. Just lob that off there, drill the holes through, and I can use this for one of the spaces down there. So it's not a total loss. Okay, so back to the drawing board. What I'm thinking I may do is probably start with a piece, something like, just if I can set that in there, start off with something like that, try to machine the part out here first, just with doing a contour cut, do that first, then flip it over, and then chop the top part off there, because I should have a gap, I should have a 6mm gap between the outside and where this part is here, so I should be able to clean that off. Maybe then flip it up on the edge, do the same again there, and then the same on that end, and work around that way. But yeah, so back to the drawing board. I might do with a couple of pieces of test wood just to make sure, because this 32mm aluminium is not particularly cheap. So I reckon we try it on a couple of pieces of wood and see if I can get the shape right to start with. Until the next video, catch you later.